So here's the function y equals -1 plus the cosine of x over 2. Alright, so the first part for the function, describe the transformation. Okay, so -1 is outside of the grouping symbol, so that has to do with vertical motion, so that's down 1. And this x over 2 is the same thing as 1 over 2 times x, and this is a fraction, and it's inside the grouping symbol, so that is horizontal expansion. So horizontal expansion. Okay, alright, so part B. Explain the amplitude, or explain why the function does not have amplitude. Okay, so the function is cosine, and the formula for amplitude for cosine is the absolute value of a, and a is whatever comes before the trig function, and in this case there is none, so we can just substitute 1. So the amplitude is 1. Alright, so C, explain the period of each function. Okay, for cosine, the period formula is 2 pi over the absolute value of b. Okay, so b is the coefficient of x. So, like I said earlier, that is the same as 1/2 times x. So b equals 1/2. So we'll just do 2 pi divided by 1/2, which is the same thing as 2 pi times the reciprocal, because we're going to keep flip change 2 over 1, which is just 4 pi all over the place. 4 pi. Okay, so explain the phase shift of each function. Okay, so the phase shift formula is -c divided by the absolute value of b. Okay, so in this case, we don't have a c. So, so there would be nothing, so it'd be 0 divided by b, and anything divided by 0 is 0, so there is no phase shift, none. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and graph the function. Okay, so these points are from the unit circle, and that's just the cosine of x. So to find the points of the new function, we're going to look at, so we'll go back to an A. We're describing the transformations of the function. So in this case, we're going down 1. So it'll be y minus 1, and there's horizontal expansion by a factor of 2, so 2x. So each coordinate that we have from the original function, we will just change by this. So we'll start with the first coordinate. So 2 times 0 is 0, and 1 minus 1 is 0. Pi over 2 times 2 is pi, and 0 minus 1 is -1. Alright, pi times 2 is 2 pi, -1 minus 1 is -2, 3 pi over 2 times 2 is just 3 pi, and 0 minus 1 is -1, and last but not least, 2 pi times 2 is 4 pi, and 1 minus 1 is 0.
Yeah.
Alright, so the points that we found and from the beginning was are over here, so we're just going to go ahead and graph those. So 0, 0 right here, pi -1 is down here, 2 pi -2, 3 pi -1, 4 pi 0. Okay, and it's symmetrical, so we'll just do the same thing in the other direction. continues this way to right here, and we'll continue in this direction as well. So, alright, and we need to graph 2 full periods, so I'll go ahead and continue this. Okay, and just connect the dots. And we have ourselves a 2 periods of this function.
So first we need to describe the transformation from the parent graph to the given function. So 2 is inside the parentheses, which means it has to do with x. And so it's horizontally compressed by 1/2. Since 1/2 is outside of the parentheses, that means it has to do with y. So it's vertically compressed by 1/2. So next I need to explain the amplitude, or why the function does not have amplitude. And cotangent functions and tangent functions never have amplitude, so there's no amplitude. Now we're going to explain the period of the function, and the period formula is pi over the absolute value of b, and b in this function is 2, so the period equals pi over 2. Okay. The phase shift formula is -c over the absolute value of b, and there's no c in this function, so c would be 0, and anything divided by 0 equals 0, so there's no phase shift. Okay, so back in A, we figured out that the function was vertically compressed by 1/2 and horizontally compressed by 2. So anything that happens to the x is going to be x over 2, and for y, it's going to be y over 2. So x divided by 0 divided by 2 equals 0. Pi over 4 divided by 2 equals pi over 8. And 1 divided by 2 is 1/2. Pi over 2 divided by 2 is pi over 4. And 0 divided by 2 is 0. 3 pi over 4 is 3 pi over 8. And -1 divided by 2 equals -1/2. Pi divided by 2 equals pi over 2. So now we're going to graph the points that we just found, and we went by pi over 8. So our first point is pi over 8, 1/2, which is there. Pi over 4, 0. 3 pi over 8, 1/2. And there's our first. So there's a vertical asymptote at pi over 2. And then there's another vertical asymptote at pi.
Okay, so there is a negative sign outside of the grouping symbol, so we know that that is a flip over the y-axis. And inside the grouping symbol, it's plus pi over 2, so we know that it is to the left. Pi over 2.
So there's never any amplitude on cosecant functions, so the amplitude is none.
Okay, so the period formula is 2 pi over the absolute value of b. Okay, so b in this case is, well, there is no b, so we can just plug 1 in for that. So 2 pi over 1 is the same thing as 2 pi. The period is 2 pi.
The phase shift formula is negative c over the absolute value of b, and c in this equation is negative pi over 2, and b is 1. So the phase shift is negative pi over 2.
Okay, so back in A, we learned that it's to the left pi over 2, so it's x minus pi over 2, and flip over the y-axis, so that's negative y. Okay, so x equals negative pi, that's the vertical asymptote. So since we're moving the whole function to the left pi over 2, that's negative pi minus pi over 2, which is negative 3 pi over 2. Okay, so our relative max, since we are moving the whole function to the left, pi over 2. So that's negative pi over 2 minus pi over 2, which is just negative pi. And then we're finding a negative y, so y is negative 1 here, so it's just, we're flipping the sign, so it's negative pi 1. The vertical asymptote is being moved to the left, pi over 2, so that's just x equals negative pi over 2. Alright, so pi over 2 minus pi over 2 is just 0, and negative 1, we're just finding the negative of y, and then we're subtracting pi over 2 from pi, so x equals pi over 2.
So our first point is a vertical asymptote at negative 3 pi over 2, and then negative pi 1 is there. And then there's another vertical asymptote at negative pi over 2, and 0, negative 1, and a vertical asymptote at pi over 2, and then pi 1, a vertical asymptote at 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi negative 1. Oh, and a vertical asymptote at 5 pi over 2.